Now when it comes to licensed games, it can always be a bit hit and miss. Most of them are just created as mere cash-ins to capitalize upon a movie's success, but sometimes they can actually be quite good, and one of the best examples of this has to be Miami Vice. In all honesty, the narrative isn't the game's strongest point, but where it excels is during play. Now it can mainly be split into 3 separate parts. You've got shooting, hacking, and then dealing, with shooting forming the core majority of the adventure. You'll be given a huge variety of weapons ranging from a lowly pistol to a handful of different automatic weapons to deal with the 12 levels that comprise the game. You'll find yourself visiting a variety of locales and disarming an untold number of gangs as you slowly clean up the streets. Now when it comes to control, it's pretty much lifted straight from Resident Evil 4. You'll move with the analog stick and you can strafe and run as well as vault over low objects. To top this off, a pretty robust cover system is in place as well. Now one aspect that bleeds over into just about every part of the game is reputation. The majority is calculated from the score you obtain at the end of each level, which depends on many different factors such as taking out a certain number of enemies with a specific weapon or confiscating as many drugs as possible. The system even goes as deep as relying upon what clothing you're wearing. If you wear the classy suit, you'll get a high bonus, but wear the armoured SWAT uniform and you get no bonus but extra armor. Miami Vice is incredibly short, however there's definitely a lot of replay value, with there being subtle differences between each campaign that any veteran of the genre can enjoy. Mac is a fairly obscure flight racing game that is a whole lot better than people give it credit for. If you're looking for a high-octane arcade racer that doesn't consist of vehicles glued to the ground, Mac is an all-round solid racing effort. The plane's controls are very tight, and there is absolutely no attempt to reflect real-life physics. Your plane can barrel roll, glide high and low, and scrape against the boundaries during turns. Gliding low also has double effect of filling up your boost meter, so you'll be flying dangerously low most of the time. The game's sense of danger also ramps up nicely as you customize your jet to fly faster and faster. There's a good dozen of jets available in the game as well, and they can all be customized with a good number of decals and performance upgrades. Unfortunately, the most disappointing aspect of the game is its lack of features. With just 5 tracks to race on and a similar handful of environments for dogfights, this game is not meant for those with time for marathon gaming sessions. There's also a lot of track reusage in the game's career mode, such that you'll likely have seen everything after just a couple of hours. Players who enjoy Mario Kart, Wipeout and Burnout will likely have already seen everything that Mac has to offer. Nevertheless, Mac's gameplay is perfectly suited for the PSP and is still great for pick up and play sessions. The game's limited depth unfortunately detracts from its overall value, but if you can find it for cheap and are thirsting for some high octane speed, this game is definitely worth a look. Right off the bat, Deadhead Fred is quite easily one of the best and most original games on the PSP. It sees you playing the role of Fred Newman, a private investigator in the city of Hope Falls. After a mission involving a local no-good tycoon named Pitt goes south, Fred finds himself dead and without a head. Luckily, a scientist finds his body, patches him up and grants him the ability to switch between a series of heads, with the first one having his own brain and eyes. He finds out that Pitt possesses his original head and embarks on a journey to take him down, and more importantly to get his head back. Now as I mentioned, a series of different heads can be used by the player, each coming with different abilities. For example, the jar head allows the player to turn invisible. The corpse head gives the ability to suck in fluids like water and gasoline, fill yourself with air to float around, and also inflict a plague upon the enemies. Apart from this, there are also certain puzzles which can only be solved if the player has a particular head equipped. Now unfortunately, the combat in the game is not as varied or as fun as you would like it to be, as each head type only has 2 kinds of attacks, light and heavy, and you are forced to make a choice between them. Besides, you will find enemies too easy to deal with even if they are huge in number, but visually, Deadhead Fred looks incredible. The city of Hope Falls is divided into different areas, each with a distinct look. There's a zombie town that is of course infested with zombies. Its streets and buildings give a look shabby enough to impress any horror fan. The enemy design in the game, though varied, is not anything original or inspiring. But despite its flaws, Deadhead Fred is like a breath of fresh air in a genre where developers were reluctant to take risks with new ideas and were happy with sequels or basing their games on tried and tested formulas. If you're looking for something unique or are tired of playing the same damn games, then Deadhead Fred is just what the doctor ordered. At its core, Undead Knights is a tale all about revenge that sees the player assuming the role of one of 3 blood members. You have Romulus, who wears armor, Remus, who wields twin swords, and Sylvia, a lady who wields a scythe. Now when it comes to gameplay, it feels incredibly similar to the likes of Devil May Cry and God of War, but with some notable differences. Instead of a double jump, you have an evade function that you can execute by double tapping the X button to roll out of the way of harm. The circle button, however, is where things really get interesting. By pressing circle next to an enemy, you reach out and grab them. When this happens, there is a control bar which fills up over time. When the bar fills up completely, that unit is instantly converted into one of your zombies. Some units can resist conversion more than others, but if the enemy is flashing red, one grab will convert them instantly. Another layer that adds to this mechanic is the use of these zombies to complete various puzzles scattered across the landscape. They can be made to break a wall, block up traps, and form a zombie bridge amongst other uses. Any one of your characters can convert enemies into zombies, which is the main part of the game. You'll see yourself fighting a variety of different enemies wielding a range of weapons, as well as a distinct cast of bosses that at times can fill the entire screen and offer up some of the more challenging moments of the game. Now the adventure spans 20 chapters, with each usually lasting around half an hour. With this you can expect a pretty healthy amount of gameplay depending on how you approach the adventure. Each of the characters have their own custom weapons as well as skills to unlock that adds to the overall replay value quite nicely. Visually, Undead Knights makes good use of the PSP system and has a large amount of units on the screen at any one time. There is a touch of slowdown when things get busy, but you won't be affected by it in the long run. Overall, Undead Knights is a really engaging and rewarding experience that any PSP owner should give a go. Its broad open spaces and range of gameplay options really help it excel. Some games thrive off of great gameplay, while others manage to weave enthralling storylines, yet others can't really muster up either, and instead settle for being moderately entertaining. Not only does The Con fall into this category, but it also seems to revel in this fact. Now the game does have a narrative, but not only is it quite silly, the cutscenes are pretty bland, and the voice acting is straight out of a B-movie. But this is where The Con starts to present a distinct charm. On the gameplay front, the fighting system is pretty basic, and reminiscent of an older type of fighting game. This is primitive combo-based gameplay at its best. Depending on what character you are controlling, they will all have different fighting styles. Each of them has a specific number of moves that they can use, as well as a unique special move and a power move. Since you can only sidestep a bit or lean back to evade attacks, you must learn to recognize moves and dodge them quickly. As I mentioned earlier, you'll have the opportunity to create your own character, and this is where things start to get interesting. The level of customization on offer is a welcome addition, as well as the sense of progression that can be made throughout the story mode, with your performance in each fight working towards several upgrades that can improve your strength and health, for example. By no means is The Con one of the best fighting games on the system, but if you've exhausted the usual suspects like Tekken or Street Fighter, in my opinion it is well worth giving a go. Chili Con Carnage is a sort of reimagining of a GTA clone known as Total Overdose. It completely strips the useless free-roaming structure that hindered the original and reworks the plot as well as the general gameplay setup. You take on the part of one Ramiro Cruz, and after his father meets an untimely death at the hands of an assassin, you set out to take down all of those responsible, taking Ramiro from drug farms to factories to oil tankers onto seedy Mexican towns, jungles, and an elaborate drug baron's mansion. The characters are just as wacky, with a fat lady wielding exploding chickens to a drug kingpin that happens to think he's a bull. If you're not easily offended, you will enjoy it. Now when it comes to gameplay, at its core it's a shooter, very much in the vein of bullet time flavoured third-person shooters like Max Payne, but it does add some unique ideas to the tried and tested formula. Chili Con Carnage relies exclusively on a combo system. There's a meter on screen that pops up as soon as you kill an enemy, and if you kill another enemy before the meter runs out, the meter will refill and your combo multiplier increases. You can gain points for pulling off a variety of acrobatic moves. What's also interesting is that the game will give you extra points for variety and speed. If you just keep doing the same old shoot dodges over and over, you won't get many points, but if you mix it up with some wall bounces or headshots, you'll be netting those high scores in no time. As you would expect, you get to use a wide variety of weaponry throughout the game. From standard pistols to machine guns as well as rocket launchers, there's a lot of choice when it comes to taking down each target. If you never got around to trying it out when it first released, Chili Con Carnage is still well worth picking up. Monster Kingdom Dual Summoner is an RPG that revolves around a monster hunter who is seeking the cause of his mother's death. After a series of events play out, he ultimately comes into control of an entire team of hunters as the story continues, revealing piece by piece a far more sinister plot that involves the fate of the entire kingdom. On the gameplay front, this is where Monster Kingdom really excels. As with most RPGs, you can expect to be visiting a wide variety of locales and interacting with a cast of relatable NPCs, which all help flesh out the world itself, as well as the events that transpire. It's largely split up into 3 separate game styles. First, you have the towns, which take on a sort of point-and-click approach. Secondly, the dungeons, which are set up like mazes, and finally the battles. Each of the mazes offer up quite the challenge by presenting the player with a series of puzzles. They usually consist of several switches that need to be located and activated in a specific sequence. But where the game truly comes into its own is during a battle. The battle system and overall setup is bound to remind you of Pokemon. It sees you gaining jewels throughout the game with a corresponding element. As you fight monsters in battle, you can weaken them and use the jewel that is the same element of the monster to catch it. Each character can hold up to 3 jewels and can switch them out in battle during their turn. After each encounter, you receive AP, which is stored to give to your monsters as experience whenever you like. Just like Pokemon, as the monster levels up, it learns new abilities, with them being able to have 4 in total, so you must choose to toss the new abilities or to exchange it for one that you already have. A neat feature is having the option to fuse your monster's jewels together, which can give them new moves, open up a 5th ability, or in rare occasions, evolve your monster into an entirely new form. Although it's nowhere near as good as many of the solid RPGs on the handheld, it still manages to hold its own and offer up an in-depth experience that will satisfy fans of the genre. Tokobot was one of the first original platforming titles for the PSP, and it was all developed around the use of a group of robots that the player would command and control. Now at the start of the game you'll have 6 little bots, but you'll also learn how to use all 3 joint actions they can perform. The first being the U formation that aligns your Tokobots around you to make a horizontal line. In this formation you're able to spin around to attack your foes, along with gliding in the air like a helicopter. The second is the V formation that sees your bots forming a straight line behind you so they can be thrown ahead like a whip towards enemies or to cling on to magnetic surfaces. Finally, the circle formation that aligns all of your bots around you, which results in them being able to throw you pretty high. All of these abilities soon become key to progressing through the adventure, may that be taking on the range of enemies or one of the several puzzles that litter the environment. Now, one of the standout aspects of the game has to be its visuals. Most cartoony platformers like Tokobot have strange landscapes, wacky designs, and use every eye-burning colour known to man, but Tokobot strays away from this overdone formula. The environments are cheerful and highly original. It's just a shame that a huge portion of the game sees you exploring ancient temples, which are admittedly boring and mundane. When outside though, you'll see windy canyons, small bodies of water, and stylish buildings. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. Unfortunately, Tokobot is just too damn short and is over far too quickly. There's not that much in the way of replay value to negate this factor as well, which is a bit disappointing, but it doesn't take away from everything that the game gets right. If you're looking for something that's easy to pick up and play, Tokobot more than fits the bill. Whilst there are many games that revolve around heroes in shiny armor saving a princess, there was one adventure that added a few things to that formula and called itself Fat Princess. It originally came to life on the PlayStation 3, and as with most PS3 games, it also received a PSP release, but it wasn't a mere port. Now there were 2 teams, Blue and Red, who were both out to rescue their princess, which are being held captive in each other's castle. Playing a match consists of feeding your princess cake to fatten her up, so she can't be hauled off by the enemy. This is a nice twist to the usual capture the flag games and adds a layer, or better yet a slice of gameplay to the mix. There's a ton of maps to choose from, and most are unique and well constructed, as well as there being 6 classes to choose from. You've got the villager, which is how you start off, a warrior, mage, a builder, and finally a priest. All of these classes have strengths and weaknesses, ranging from speed to more health. To change class, there are machines dotted around the level which drop hats and serve as the different class. The builder class can actually upgrade these machines to drop stronger hats, and when upgraded you are able to use another weapon or ability. For warriors it's a spear, mages the ability to freeze enemies, archers can use a musket, priests can drain enemies' life, and builders can blow things up with bombs. Thankfully though, it's not just about saving the princess. There are several other modes, such as team deathmatch, to even more unique offerings like soccer that help the experience from becoming stale. This can also be credited to the nice cel-shaded graphics that splatter on your screen, just like all of the gore in the game. With vibrant colours and quirky characters, every game turns into a strange but oh so cute massacre. Overall, Fat Princess is a fistful of fun on the PSP, and a game that I can highly recommend you play. There is no denying that the PSP was a goldmine when it came to RPGs. Players were literally spoiled for choice when it came to choosing a new adventure, but one that has largely been forgotten by the mainstream audience is Jeanne d'Arc. It takes place in 15th century France as the English and French battle it out against one another in a 100 Years' War. A farm girl named Jeanne has her hometown burnt to the ground. Obtaining a powerful amulet on her wrist and given orders from an oracle from the heavens, Jeanne heads out to fight for her country and take down England, saving her homeland of France. Now when it comes to gameplay, it's a strategic RPG that's made up of a series of story battles as well as a slew of side content that helps pad out the adventure. Each encounter features a set of rules and win conditions that sees you having to defeat a certain number of enemies, while some have you escaping a map at a certain point without letting any of your units pass away. About a dozen or so characters will join up with Jeanne's cause during the duration of the game. Each have their strengths and weaknesses. There's the typical brute force soldier, the slow but strong lion who loves to speak in the third person, the archer, the map combining thief, the lancer, the weak offense healer, and many more. Each character can be equipped with weapons, armor, accessories, and skills and spells. As you progress far enough in the game, you combine skills and spells to create newer, more powerful abilities. What skill once boosted a character's HP to 20 now does so by 50. As characters gain levels, the amount of skill slots is increased by 1 every 5 or so levels earned. This means you can equip your troops with powerful abilities to make battles all the more manageable. If you're stuck for an RPG on the PSP, Jeanne d'Arc is well worth considering. Well, that does it for today's video. Keep an eye out for part 3 as that will be coming up soon, so don't forget to hit subscribe and tickle that bell. You can follow me on all of the socials to stay up to date on future videos, as well as to take part in giveaways. You can also join our growing community on Discord and meet many like-minded gamers to continue the conversation with. I'd like to give a special shout out to our Patreon supporters Rhino, Skill Jim, Nano, Steve, Richard, Daniel and Paddy J for their continued support that helps make these videos possible. If you're interested in joining our Discord or supporting the channel through Patreon, you'll find the links in the description. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch the video. I'll catch you next time.